What is going on? Happy Friday to you. If you're watching this live, you're watching this in the future. Happy day, whatever it is for you at that moment. But right now it's June the 30th. It's a Friday. Tomorrow it's the 4th. Or not the 4th. Why did I say that? It's July 1st. Oh, man, I need to go back to bed. But anyway, that's not the reason you came on here. College football 2023 Week 8 preview. We're to Week 8. So, up to this point, I have focused on Week 0 all the way up to now Week 8. And it's getting really interesting. Now, before I go any farther, I'm Brian Knight. I am not Bobby Durkins. If you don't know who Bobby Durkins is, go look him up just after this video. But I'm not Bobby Durkins, at least not here. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Hit the thumbs up and the notification bell. It lets you know when I'm going live or I just posted content. But yeah, it's all free as well. So let's hop right into the reason that you got on here to talk college football 2023 Week 8 preview. In the comment section and in the description below the video, I've put a link to the fbsschedules.com 2023 college football schedule. So this is what I've been using to just look at the games. This is something that you can bookmark on your laptop or maybe keep on your phone. And it's a great way to just kind of look ahead and see what games are coming up. So as I am sharing the schedule, let's talk about the college football season for 2023. So at this point, the college football season, not counting Week 0, is 15 weeks long, okay? If you're going to count Week 0, we're exactly at the midpoint right now. If you're not, we're a little bit over. Who cares? So you can see the college football schedule right here for week 8, and let's dive into it. So up to this point, we've already had games like Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, Florida State and LSU has already played. At this point, Notre Dame and Southern Cal has already played. We've already had, I believe, Auburn and LSU. That's right off the top of my head. Texas and Alabama. Florida and Tennessee, if I haven't said that already. We've also had some revenge games. For instance, we have South Carolina and Tennessee. They've already played. So up to this point, we have a really good idea of what teams in the preseason, they were being pumped up to get their media and their fan bases into the season, but they really wasn't that good. And then we're seeing the teams who are legitimate teams. One of those teams, or two of those teams right off the top of my head that I could say that we'll know a lot about by this point of the season will be Texas and Florida State, who is definitely being sold to the entire country very, very hard. So we'll know more about them at this point. But Week 8 starts on a Tuesday night. This is the second week in a row that it starts on a Tuesday night. And Week 7, Coastal Carolina at Appalachian State on a Tuesday night in Boone, North Carolina. That's a really exciting game. But at this point, there's really nothing that's really exciting at this point unless you're a fan of some of these teams. So I'm just going to scroll through Tuesday. Wednesday doesn't look amazing. Thursday doesn't look amazing. Friday looks anemic. But if you just want to watch college football or having it playing in the background, go for it. Why? It's college football. We get to Saturday, October the 21st. Clemson just had a bye week, by the way. Pun intended, by the way, bye week. So we'll start off with an interesting game, TCU and Kansas State. Now, Kansas State, had they beat TCU in the Big 12 conference game, I think that with history giving us 2020 vision, TCU's season would have looked a lot better, right? Versus a 65-7 loss in the national championship, because everything up to that point was magical. And it was something that a lot of people would actually be interested in. But unfortunately, we know what happened. So TCU and Kansas State getting together, there's a lot of hype around Kansas State this year. They return a solid amount of their supporting cast. Kleiman has done very well there, considering. I mean, Kansas State is not an easy place to coach because you're in the middle of nowhere. That's why Bill Snyder has been seen like some type of unicorn. He's been seen as a unicorn because of that. So that's an interesting game to keep your eyes on. Probably a 3:30 game Eastern time, maybe ABC. Then for now, a Big 12 matchup, Texas at Houston. Texas should win that game without even breaking a sweat. And just to mention, because it is a Big 12 game, you see Texas Tech at BYU. That's now a Big 12 game. Have you seen pictures of BYU Stadium? It is just beautiful. It's right there in the mountains. I'm not a fan of their team, but I would love to go see BYU Stadium. Just beautiful. Next up, another one. Once again, only reason I'm bringing this up is because it's so odd. UCF at Oklahoma. That's a Big 12 game for right now. Oklahoma and Texas, we know they're about, they're going to play one more season in the Big 12, and then they're going to the SEC. That's a very interesting game. Now, I'm going to bring up a game now that if you're new here, you're going to think, man, this guy has no credibility at all for bringing this one up. The only reason I bring it up is just because of it's a very interesting game. UTSA, who has a 7-year starter due to the whole extra year of eligibility. He got hurt. Frank Harris. But UTSA, that's quarterback Frank Harris. UTSA, pretty solid football team. They're not going to make a run to the national championship. You're probably not going to see them in the Cotton Bowl or something like that. Then again, Tulane did it. But I just don't see that. I do see them being a team that historically but over the past few years, they've done quite well. They have the players there. They have the tenure. But they're playing at Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic's interesting because Tom Herman's the head coach. Yes, that Tom Herman. So that'll be an interesting game just because of that. Now, scrolling on down, we get into some ACC play. A game that at this point is flying under the radar. Now, at the beginning of me talking college football, a few weeks ago, doing this whole week-by-week preview, just an overview, I started to dive in on a few teams. One of the teams that I dove into and then had to quickly pump my brakes on what I said about them is Duke. Now, that's what's interesting about doing a show like this and having to look at multiple teams. You're not an expert, but you start to realize and be challenged in the way that you view certain teams. Certain teams are overrated. Certain teams could definitely be underrated, and Duke football is one of them. Last year, they went 9-4. Mike Elko, first-year coach. They returned 16 starters. Their starting quarterback is fantastic. They play at Florida State. As I said, by this time in the season, we will know a lot about Florida State. And if Duke has not just lost some game, like getting blown out and then just made the wheels come off, but they are winning the games that they are supposed to win, and they're competing in the games that they probably don't supposed to win, and win a few of those games. I hope it's not against Clemson. That's how much I'm starting to take Duke with a little, have a little more respect for them. I trust me, I have to clean the it's Duke football out of my head, because Duke football has just been trash. You had a few good years here and there. You have a few good athletes that come through the door. Almost every school has at least one good athlete that's come out of it. Almost every school. Somehow, some way. But they are not historically great. They're not going to be great this year, but they're going to be a problem. And they could be a problem for Florida State. As we get closer to that one, that might become an upset special for me. I will tell you that. If they're playing good ball. Moving on down, Penn State at Ohio State. Penn State, once again, is receiving a lot of praise, preseason hype. It's not that I dislike James Franklin. It's just he reminds me of Dabo if Dabo hadn't had success. And you go, well, James Franklin's been successful. He hasn't went to the playoffs 6 consecutive years and won 2 national championships. Nice try. A lot of people, including myself at times, overlook, especially as Clemson fans, the past few years, start to become so common with the 6 consecutive playoffs and the 2 national championships and the 2 once-in-a-lifetime quarterbacks within a 3-year period. What he did is amazing, but Franklin reminds me of Sweeney if Sweeney didn't have the success that he's had. He's been successful compared to other coaches. He's coaching at Penn State. They're playing at Ohio State. That's going to be an interesting game. Now, if Penn State wants to get this monkey off their back, they want to get over the hump, whatever terminology you want to use, this would be the game to win. And be consistent in the other games and not get upset by some crappy team. Michigan and Michigan State. This was an interesting game a couple of years ago when Kenneth Walker was there, the transfer out of Wake Forest. Went up there, had a great season. They're at Michigan State. Beat Michigan. It's an interesting game. Michigan should win that game. Then, of course, my Clemson Tigers. For all the Clemson fans here, just want to remind you that I will be breaking down Clemson football, individual games. And I'm about, since we're going into July, and we only have about 2 months before the opening game against Duke on a Monday night, Wallace Wade Stadium, only 40,000 people. Tell me tell me all of that is not a trap game. Underwhelming environment, all that bunch of stuff. Duke being a little better than what they have, a lot better than what they've been. I will go through those. I will start going through those games. And what I want to do is break down. We will look at Clemson, but we're going to break down our opponent. And we're going to talk more about their team to try to be more educated on who we're playing. As I said, it's just like looking at Duke. You have to get it out of your head that this is just going to be an easy game. So in this sense, Clemson at Miami, this used to be a game that you'd circle in red if you were going to spend money to go to a game. I know someone right now who said they might go down to Miami just to say they went to the Miami game. That might be fun. And Cristobal's going into season 2. It's been a mess down there at Miami. The shell of history, you hear me talk about same uniforms. They don't play at the same place anymore, but, the same uniform, same fight song, seemingly they think they have the same swag, but at the end of the day, they don't. Unless Cristobal starts changing something. You do have to play Tyler Van Dyke as long as he's not injured. You have to respect that. He's a good quarterback. He's a talented quarterback. But we know that Clemson, unless something crazy happens, most likely they're going to be a heavy favorite in this game. Ole Miss at Auburn, that'll be interesting as the season matures because, well, Hugh Freeze is first year brilliant coach. His former team, who did so many things, was such a headache to Alabama. Seeing them play against Ole Miss, and that could be a fun game. That might be a 3:30 game. No, I see my 3:30 game. Never mind. Scratch that. That might be a 7 o'clock game. 7 o'clock kickoff. Now, I'm going to mention this one just for fun. South Carolina and Missouri. Who wins that one? Last year was it? Really? Really? I mean, come on, man. You serious? Who wins that one? It's got, I mean, be honest with yourself. Who wins that game? And then the game of all games that week. Utah and US. I'm just kidding. Tennessee at Alabama. One of the best games of all last season was Alabama at Tennessee. Tennessee winning, tearing down the goalpost, taking it, throwing it in the Tennessee River. People smoking cigars everywhere. There's just all this craziness going on. You have Jalen Hyatt and Peyton Manning in the locker room smoking cigars. There's that picture of them going around. It's funny. Tennessee fans, you know I have no ill will towards you. In fact, I had Sports Talk Jay on here. He was fantastic. They have a lot of the right pieces. But will Joe Milton do what he has not done his entire college career? And that's be consistently good. I know what he did against Clemson. That's one game. What about the other years that he hasn't done? And that is the big asterisk there with Tennessee. And do you want to send the 5-star out there to have to clean up after him? Maybe he's ready. Maybe he is. Maybe by this point, if Milton is starting to mess up everything, Nico might be running things. I mean, we had a true freshman win a national championship for us. Now, granted, that was Trevor Lawrence. Deshaun Watson was balling like a crazy man as a freshman. And the only reason he didn't finish that season as the starting quarterback, well, he did finish the season. He did end up coming back with a torn ACL, beat South Carolina. That was funny. They lost to Georgia, but his first 2 passes were complete, and the second one was the second pass of the 2 completions was a touchdown. He threw a strike to Sharon Peak against Georgia, and Georgia was looking at each other going, whoa, what the crap just happened? So Nico might come in and do it. I don't know. But every Tennessee fan knows if Joe flounders, so does Tennessee. Alabama, everybody's hoping that Alabama is falling apart. I can tell you that. I can tell you by just reading the comments section. I can tell you by looking at the comment section on a lot of my videos, looking at comments and tweets from people about Alabama football, the commentary on Alabama football, people are hoping, they are hoping like everything that Alabama will stop being so good. Well, folks, unless Nick Saban loses his mind, unless he loses his mind or he dies or he just quits, Bama's still going to be good. So this Bama wants this game back. So Tennessee, if they're kind of faltering that week, or maybe Milton's been playing kind of just good enough to get wins, but at this time, it's just that's not going to be a good thing for Tennessee. Once again, Tennessee fans, hear me. It's all on Joe Milton. One game against Clemson, he did good. The rest of his college career, embarrassment. He can throw a ball laying on his back 80 yards. Yep. He can't throw a 5-yard out route. He can't do it. He'll throw it out there so hard it bounces off of his wide receiver because it knocked him down. Oh, he threw it so hard. Yep, ends up in the hands of the defender running it back for a touchdown. He's like a Ferrari driving through a curvy mountain at full speed. Beautiful car. A lot of horsepower. I got to pick on myself for that one. A lot of horsepower. And he drives off the side of the mountain and destroys everything and kills everybody inside. Joe Milton. It's all up to him with Tennessee. Or Nico might be getting baptized really quick. But hey, these days, these kids are playing really well coming out of high school. These higher level guys, not all of them, but a lot of them are just coming out more and more ready. And Nico might be running things. Next up, here's one that last year was really fun because when you think of Utah football, you think of Whittingham. And Whittingham has been very constant there, all right? But Utah football, they've went to the Rose Bowl, 2 years in a row? And managed to lose it, even when they were ahead 2 years ago by a lot. Blew it. And last year, just got ran out of the stadium. But there was one thing they could do last year really, really, really well, and that was beat Southern Cal. They dredged Southern Cal. And when you see guys like Caleb Williams come out and play against teams like that, and then you think about guys like me going, if I had to choose between Drake May or Caleb Williams, I take Drake May because of leadership. And you go, wow, man. Go back to that Utah game. Games. That'll show you. Last year was last year. This year will be this year. Who knows, though? Who knows? Does Utah continue the domination of one of the best teams that money bought? Huh? I'm just asking you. This will be interesting. So week 8, you have Utah, USC, Tennessee, Alabama. Okay? Ole Miss and Auburn. For us Clemson fans, Clemson and Miami. Penn State, Ohio State. TCU, Kansas State. These are the big games of the week. And then if you want to just kind of sit and watch something else, go to that Duke and Florida State game, because I'm telling you, if Duke's playing a lot better than what they historically have been doing, if they do it, Florida State, especially if they've been hyped up, and I believe they have. I believe that they're a good football team. Do not get me wrong. Clemson will have to play their best ball against Florida State. Anybody who plays them will have to play their best ball. But to the level that everybody has hyped Florida State up, the Dukies could come out with a big win. All right, folks, that is the Week 8 preview of college football 2023. We're on the backside of college football FBS schedules. And so I've talked about this a lot. The usual suspects, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan this year, Michigan has actually earned it these past few years. Other years, that it was kind of like the whole Penn State or Texas thing where they're always telling us, Michigan's good, Michigan's good, Michigan's good, Michigan's a contender, Michigan, and then Michigan's nothing. But Michigan, they're there. Those are the contenders for this year. But the usual suspects being Georgia, Alabama, the Ohio State. I mean, it's the duh. They're there. Will Clemson be a worthwhile top 10 team? Like legitimately there. Not like Penn State or Texas. Now, if they end up playing great ball and by the end of the season the smoke clears, that's all that matters. Preseason doesn't. We know that. I mean, the smoke cleared last year and all of a sudden Tulane was standing on top of the Trojans of Southern California. And if you'd have told us this time last year that Tulane would win the Cotton Bowl over Southern Cal, knowing who Southern Cal had, we'd have said, you got hold of something that you might need to go to emergency room for. Now, is that a unicorn team? Yeah. But getting back to reality, is Clemson actually a team that is worthy of a top 10, top 8 look? Now, I'm going to tell you, as a Clemson fan, I love my Tigers, and I hope the very, very best for them. There's a lot of good moves that's happened in the offseason. Have the new coordinator. Cade knows it's his team. You have a true freshman, but you have a kid who looks pretty good. Chris Vizina, out of Alabama, who could come in and do very well. But with knowing this and knowing that you have the running back room and that you have at least 3 people who can catch football, Bo Collins, Jake Brennan-Stool, and Antonio Williams, barring injury, maybe somebody else will step up. And the defense, I think, is going to be a lot better than what a lot of people realize, is it? Because the big names are gone, but they think who's left is, you and I, us Tiger fans knows that the defense, that a lot of those defensive players, especially along the line, are still fantastic. So if people want to take Clemson lightly on the defensive side of the ball because no Trenton Simpson, no Miles Murphy, no Brian Bresee, normally you would say, well, that's fair. Yeah, that is fair. You just don't know who's on our roster. Clemson could make a maybe run to the college football playoff, but I'm going to tell you this, and I've said this several times, and I'm going to say it again because repetition is one of the easiest way for you to remember. Repetition is one of the easiest way for you to remember, and if you've never heard it, repetition is one of the easiest ways for you to remember something, and that is I don't want us to go into the college football playoff and get our butt handed to us. That will hurt us in recruiting. That will hurt morale. Once again, TCU could have lost in the first round of the college football playoff to Michigan, and that would have been better for them than losing 65-7 national championship. And all we remember of last season is that game. That's it. So I don't want that for Clemson. But I believe Clemson is a 10-win season this year. It's at least a 10-win season. The ACC championship, definitely in the running for them. A New Year's Day Bowl, definitely in the running for them. Is it a guarantee? No. But I do not comfortably seeing them. We'll have to get through the season and get through games like Florida State. How did they perform against Florida State? How are they developing along the offensive line? How are they moving the ball against teams like NC State? How are they moving the ball against teams like Notre Dame? How are they stopping the offense? How are they treating these games? If they lose, how do they lose them? How you lose is a big deal. You lose by 7 points or less. Yes, you're pissed, and it's against a good team, by the way. That's the other major variable to remember. You lose to a good team by 7 points or less, people are more forgiving. But if you lose by 3 touchdowns, like, I don't know, in South Bend on a November Saturday night, there's no forgiveness, and there should be no forgiveness. You should look at that and go, we can't overlook that. How the crap did that happen? But as I said, I'm going to narrow down the Clemson season. I'm going to go through their opponents. I'm going to go through who their opponents has returning, their coaching staff, and just try to give us an educated view of who our opponents really are. Hey, look, I know we play Charleston Southern. Who cares? Florida Atlantic's only interesting because Tom Herman's there. It's first year with him. And then you have Wake Forest, who they lost Sam Hartman, But we have to look into these. We have to look into these games like Notre Dame and North Carolina, and then South Carolina. Are they going to be up for trying to contend with us again? How's their season? I might even do, believe it or not, I might even do a particular breakdown of South Carolina and a couple of other teams and their potential within their season and go from there. Leave with this one last comment. Everyone is forgetting that run the ball is a big part of Riley's offenses. I think he'll lean on that against Duke. The shots will come as we wear them down. That's a really good point. And considering he has a 4-headed monster in his running back room, he has a lot to work with. He can cycle them in and out. And I hope he cycles all 4 of them. A fresh Will Shipley and a fresh Phil Maffa is harder to bring down than and more capable of big plays than a worn down guy who's getting the ball 20, 25 times per game. You can slip through tackles. You can break tackles. Even if you churn for an extra 2 or 3 yards, that's an extra 2 or 3 yards. That builds up, and it wears the defense down. It gets more first downs. It puts you in favorable play calling situations. And I hope that he uses that, and hopefully you will. I think you will. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on the Clemson college football. Man, I've misspoke this entire time. College football 2023 Week 8 preview. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and pass this along to any forums, any sports forums that you're part of or clubs. Let them know about it, as I am going through Clemson football, but I'm also going through other college football teams in the season, because listen to me, today is June the 30th. We're getting very close to the college football season. Before you know it, we'll be in week 0. Everybody will be watching the Notre Dame and Navy game, acting like they care about either team. But we will, because it's finally college football and we'll watch it. So anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you next time.